The world knew her story, or so they thought. July 29th, 1981. A nervous 19-year-old girl stands at the entrance of St. Paul's Cathedral. Her hands shake slightly as she adjusts her 25-foot train. 750 million people watch as Lady Diana Spencer prepares to walk down that endless aisle toward Prince Charles. The commentators speak of a fairy tale, a shy kindergarten teacher becoming a princess, fresh blood entering the ancient royal bloodline, a commoner elevated by love. But what if I told you that every single word of that narrative was wrong? What if the woman walking down that aisle wasn't a commoner at all? What if she carried bloodlines that made her more royal than the man waiting at the altar? What if Diana Spencer wasn't marrying into the royal family, but was actually coming home? Today, I'm going to reveal the most explosive secret in British royal history. A secret so shocking that if it had been known in 1981, it would have rewritten everything we thought we knew about the monarchy. Diana Spencer carried the forbidden blood of kings. Not just any kings, but the most powerful, most legitimate royal bloodlines that had ever ruled Britain. Bloodlines that were supposed to have died out centuries ago. Bloodlines that the House of Windsor never knew existed. Are you ready for this journey? Because once you know what I'm about to tell you, you'll never look at the royal family the same way again. Let me take you back to Tudor England, to the court of the most infamous king in British history, Henry VIII. We all know the story, right? 6 wives, desperate for a male heir, the break with Rome when the Pope wouldn't grant him a divorce. But here's what they never taught you in school. Henry VIII did have sons, multiple sons. They just couldn't inherit the throne because they weren't born to his wives. Now, most royal bastards in history were hidden away, forgotten, erased from records. But Henry Fitzroy was different. Born in 1519 to Elizabeth Blount, he wasn't a shameful secret. He was Henry's pride and joy. Picture this scene. A 6-year-old boy being made Duke of Richmond and Somerset. The name Fitzroy literally means son of the king. Henry wasn't hiding anything. This child received everything a legitimate prince would get. His own castle, his own court, his own army of servants and tutors. At age 7, Fitzroy was appointed Lord Lieutenant of Ireland. Think about that. A 7-year-old controlling an entire country. Henry was grooming this boy for something big. Court observers noted something remarkable. When Henry looked at Fitzroy, his eyes showed pride and affection that seemed to surpass his feelings for his legitimate daughters. This wasn't just fatherly love. This was the look of a king seeing his true heir. But here's where the story gets tragic. In 1536, at just 17 years old, Fitzroy died of tuberculosis. Henry VIII was devastated. Some historians believe this loss drove Henry's increasingly desperate attempts to get legitimate male heirs through his remaining marriages. Now, here's where most people think the story ends. But they're wrong, dead wrong. Fitzroy's bloodline didn't die with him. It survived. It travelled through centuries of English nobility, through strategic marriages and careful preservation, until it reached one family. The Spencers. Diana Spencer was a direct descendant of Henry Fitzroy. She carried the pure male line of Henry VIII flowing through her veins. But wait, it gets even more incredible. Let me tell you about Mary Boleyn. Anne Boleyn's older sister. While everyone knows about Anne, Mary's story was deliberately buried, and for good reason. Before Henry became obsessed with Anne, he had a long affair with Mary. During this relationship, Mary had 2 children, Catherine Carey, born around 1524, and Henry Carey, born around 1526. Officially, these were the children of Mary's husband, William Carey. But everyone at court knew the truth. These children looked exactly like Henry VIII. They had his height, his build, his distinctive features. Here's what proves it. Elizabeth I, who was notoriously careful with royal favour, showered the Carey family with benefits throughout her reign. Catherine Carey married Francis Knollys, and their 15 children became integral parts of Elizabeth's court. Why would Elizabeth, who trusted no one, give such extraordinary privileges to the supposed children of a minor courtier? Because she knew exactly who they were, her half-siblings. Catherine Carey's 15 children spread throughout English nobility, carrying Henry VIII bloodline into dozens of aristocratic families. And guess where those bloodlines eventually converged? The Spencer family. By now, you're probably thinking this is incredible enough. But we're just getting started. The Spencer family had done something unprecedented in European history. Through 5 centuries of strategic marriages, they had collected royal bloodlines like precious jewels. Not just Tudor blood, but genetics from virtually every dynasty that had ever ruled Britain. Let me paint you a picture. While other noble families sought wealth or political power through marriage, the Spencers seemed to have an instinct for royal blood. They consistently married into families with hidden royal connections, gradually accumulating bloodlines that official history claimed were extinct. Stuart blood from Charles II acknowledged bastards. Plantagenet blood from medieval kings who conquered nations. Scottish royal blood from Robert the Bruce and the early Stuart kings. Even traces of ancient Saxon bloodlines that reached back to the very foundations of English monarchy. The Spencer family had become something that shouldn't exist, a living genetic archive of British royalty. Now, let's talk about what this means for the Windsor family. The House of Windsor came to power in 1714, not because they were the closest genetic relatives to English kings, but because Parliament chose George I for being Protestant. The Windsors were German aristocrats who became English royalty through political convenience, not bloodline. Diana, the supposed commoner, actually had stronger genetic claims to the English throne than her husband. Think about the irony here. The world celebrated a fairy tale marriage between a prince and a commoner, but genealogical experts knew the truth. The commoner was genetically more royal than the prince. When Diana married Charles, she wasn't just bringing beauty and charm to the royal family, she was bringing legitimacy. Legitimacy. Real, ancient, genetic legitimacy that went back nearly 1,000 years. But here's where this story becomes both triumphant and tragic. Diana's sons inherited something unprecedented in British history. William and Harry became the first royals ever to carry both the official succession through their father and the forbidden bloodlines through their mother. For the first time in over 500 years, the shadow royal bloodlines and the official monarchy were united in the same people. When William becomes king, he won't just be wearing the crown of the Windsors. He'll be the first monarch to carry the genetic heritage of virtually every significant dynasty in British history. Tudor, Stuart, Plantagenet, Saxon bloodlines that were separated by politics and religion for centuries will finally be reunited. But there's a dark side to this story that we need to talk about. Diana's superior royal heritage may have contributed to the tensions within the royal family. Family. Think about it from the Windsor perspective. Here was a woman who appeared to be a commoner but actually possessed bloodlines that challenged the fundamental legitimacy of their rule. Palace insiders have long speculated about the institutional resistance Diana faced. The elaborate protocols, the restrictions, the emphasis on her supposed inadequacies. What if these weren't just cultural differences? What if the Windsor establishment unconsciously recognized the genealogical threat Diana represented? Diana's bloodline didn't just offer an alternative to Windsor legitimacy. It offered a superior claim based on genetic connections to England's most ancient and prestigious dynasties. The palace may have responded with institutional resistance designed to minimize her influence and prevent her superior heritage from undermining Windsor authority. When Diana died in that tunnel in Paris in 1997, the world lost more than a beloved humanitarian. They lost the last direct personal link to England's complete royal heritage. Diana was the living bridge between ancient dynasties and modern monarchy. Her death severed that direct connection, though her genetic legacy flows through her sons. Let me share something that will give you chills. Throughout her life, people often commented on Diana's natural grace, her instinctive understanding of royal duty, her ability to connect with people across all social boundaries. What if this wasn't learned behavior? What if it was genetic programming? Diana didn't learn to be royal through protocol training. She was royal in the most fundamental sense, carrying within her DNA the accumulated wisdom of centuries of effective royal governance. This genetic authenticity may explain her enduring popularity. On some unconscious level, people recognized that Diana represented something authentic about British royalty that transcended constitutional authority. Now, let's talk about what this means for the future. Prince William carries within his genetic heritage the bloodlines of kings and queens whose names were deliberately excluded from official records, but whose genetic legacy proved impossible to eliminate. His ancestry represents the ultimate synthesis of British royal tradition. When he becomes king, the crown will finally reflect the full scope of its ancient heritage for the first time in centuries. Prince Harry, though unlikely to inherit the throne, carries the same remarkable genetics and represents an insurance policy for these restored bloodlines. Both princes embody the vindication of centuries of genealogical preservation and the ultimate success of families like the Spencers in maintaining royal bloodlines that official history tried to erase. Their children will carry this complete royal heritage to future generations, ensuring that the genetic legacy of Britain's greatest dynasties remains forever integrated into the modern monarchy. But here's what makes this story truly extraordinary. The preservation of these bloodlines across 5 centuries required an almost miraculous series of circumstances. Think about everything that could have gone wrong. Civil wars that eliminated entire royal lines, religious revolutions that changed the basis of royal authority, dynastic changes that brought foreign houses to power, plagues, wars, political upheavals that could have severed these genetic threads forever. Yet somehow, through careful marriages, extensive record-keeping, and an intuitive understanding of the value of royal connections, families like the Spencers maintained the biological continuity of England's royal traditions. They became unwitting custodians of something precious beyond measure. The genetic memory of 1,000 years of British monarchy. Diana's story reveals something profound about the relationship between blood and crown, between genetic legitimacy and political authority. While constitutional frameworks and parliamentary acts determine who sits on the throne in the modern era, genetic heritage tells a deeper truth about royal legitimacy that transcends artificial political boundaries. The shy kindergarten teacher who seemed so refreshingly ordinary was actually the keeper of England's most extraordinary secret. She didn't marry into nobility. She restored it. Diana Spencer brought home the lost princes, the forgotten kings, the shadow bloodlines that had been waiting 5 centuries to reclaim their rightful place at the heart of the English crown. Her legacy isn't just humanitarian work or changing the monarchy's public image. Her legacy is genetic. Royal. Complete. The fairy tale was never about a commoner becoming a princess. It was about a lost princess, carrying the blood of forgotten kings, finally coming home to complete the royal family's genetic heritage. When that nervous 19-year-old walked down the aisle at St. Paul's Cathedral, she wasn't just joining the royal family. She was healing wounds that had divided British royal bloodlines for over 500 years. The forbidden Tudor secret wasn't just hidden in Diana's bloodline. It was her bloodline. And through her sons, those ancient royal genetics are flowing toward the throne, ready to restore the crown to its most complete and legitimate form in British history. Diana didn't just capture a prince's heart. She captured the genetic soul of British monarchy and returned it to where it belonged. The greatest royal secret of all. The commoner was more royal than the royals themselves.